This is Terror of the Night by E.D. Testerman, the uncut version. Alan Peters was riding his horse one late fall night. It was around midnight and the air was cool. The leaves were changing colors, and the faint smell of earth and wood filled the air. Alan's old nag Sarah was moping along, and Alan could hear her hooves clack on the cobblestone road. It was like a tune all on its own. Alan rocked back and forth with the motion of Sarah. His eyes grew heavy, and her side to side motion made it hard to stay awake. His body began to sag, and he felt the tension of the night melt away. He began to nod off. The only other feeling that he had was that there was danger close by. He fought to keep his eyes open. With this hit of danger lingering in the back of his mind, he wanted to stay awake. With Sarah's constant rocking and the late party, he found it hard. Alan had been in town at the governor's masquerade party. The governor often threw parties at his mansion. Allen was the wealthiest landowner in Virginia. The mundane so called nobles often sought him out. He was not very well liked by most of them. He had freed his slaves when he took over the family's plantation. One fall night, his father and mother were returning from town. They never made it home. All that was found was the bloody remains of their clothes. He kept no white foreman. Charlie was the oldest black on the plantation and knew how it ran. Allen and Charlie worked the land together. Even though Allen was not very well liked, everyone wanted to be on his good side. He had more land and money than all the owners and the governor combined. He supplied the Americas, Britain, and France with cotton, tobacco, and timber. The governor's beautiful daughter, Mary, often danced with him at the parties. Allen and Mary fancied each other. They would go from the crowds of the nobles to talk and to be alone. They felt the same in so many ways and on so many things. Alan's mind drifted to the thought of Mary. Her smile could brighten the darkest of nights. She always smelled of lavender and rose petals. Her skin was as soft as silk. Alan was brought back to reality when he heard a wolf howl off in the distance. At first he thought it was odd, but he shrugged it off. Sarah shuddered and began to walk faster. She was snorting and was very uneasy. Then that's when he started to take notice that maybe it could be more and not in his tired head. Another howl rang out, and it was much closer. Alan was puzzled. The wolf had closed a great distance in such a short time. Sarah darted off at a fast run. Alan fought to remain in the saddle and to gain control of Sarah. Alan had Sarah for 15 years, and she had never acted like this. They had heard wolves howl many a times, and she never really paid any attention to them. This time was different, and this time she was scared. Alan's heart started pounding, and fear began to grip tightly in his soul. He began to look around frantically. What is out there? He asked himself. He thought he noticed movement off to his right. For a split second, he thought he saw a massive wolf. He turned back to make sure they were still on the trail. Something in the back of his brain was screaming to run. There is danger. Run! He could not shake that feeling. He looked back to his right again, but the figure was gone. Alan noticed that the nighttime noises in the woods had gone silent. The silence was eerie and unsettling. He had never heard the woods this silent before. The hairs on his body stood up, and an unsettling chill came over him. He nudged Sarah, trying to get her to go faster. He felt the sensation that he needed to get out of these woods. Sarah was panting heavily. She was tiring, and Alan knew she could not hold this pace for much longer. They were about a mile from the plantation, and he knew they needed to reach it for safety. He thought he heard a growl come from the woods. He looked around for the source of the growl. He recalled the wolf that he had seen, and he knew that it must have been the wolf that made the growl. Out of nowhere, Alan was knocked from his horse. He hit the ground hard. The impact knocked the wind from his lungs, and pain shot across his chest. He slowly put his hand on his chest. As he removed it, his hand was covered in bright red, warm, slick blood, which steamed in the cool night air. He fell back to the ground and struggled to regain the air in his lungs. He stared up at the star covered night sky, the full moon just peeking over the trees. As he was blacking out, he could hear his horse, Sarah, whine in pain. His mind drifted off to memories of his family. They had such happy memories. He recalled when he was a child. He and his parents were at the lake. His father was teaching him how to fish with a cane pole. Alan woke up after a spell and saw the massive wolf on two legs, eating his horse, Sarah. He tried to get up and shout, but words would not come to his lips. Alan tried to grab his pistol with his bloody hand. His arms and his hands seemed to not want to respond. He tried again but passed out. After a while, Alan woke up again and he saw Mary clambering over him, trying to check on him. Her face was covered in blood. Her clothes were torn and also covered in blood, and she looked worried. He tried to figure out why she was there and why she was covered in so much blood. She was frantically trying to stop his wounds from bleeding. Looking at her, he thought, why does she have torn clothes? And why is she covered in so much blood? Then his eyes grew large. He remembered the massive wolf. Alan fought for all his might to utter this to her. Mary, run. There is a. Alan passed out again. Alan was awakened by the morning sun. He slowly and painfully sat up. He was back home and in his bed. Confusion began to cloud his mind. How did I get back home? He asked himself. Then memories of the night flashed through his mind. His eyes grew large, and then he recalled Mary being there. The more he thought about it, the more he gained concern. Mary opened his bedroom door, and she looked at him. Alan noticed that she was clean now and had new clothes on. Alan's eyes grew large as he began to wonder. Memories flashed back as he recalled the massive wolf wearing a torn dress, much like what Mary was wearing. He went to move, and his chest rang out in pain. Groaning, he grabbed for his chest. Easy, Alan. You're hurt, said Mary. Alan had fear in his eyes as he recalled the night before. Alan, why do you fear me? Asked Mary. Alan just sat there and stared at her, not saying a word. I will explain everything once you are healed, said Mary. After a couple days, Alan was fully healed. How could this be? I should still be healing, thought Alan. Alan removed his bandages, and there before him on his chest were four long scars. Fear overtook him. They looked like claw marks. Then the memory of that moment flooded back to him. He could recall the feeling of the massive wolf's claws tearing his skin, the pain of them scraping on his bones, and the sensation of the warm, wet blood flowing down his chest. He had been attacked as well. How was it that Mary knew where he was? And how did she have blood all over her? Mary walked through the door. She lowered her head. Alan, we need to talk, she said. Alan, I was attacked in the backyard about a month ago. There were two werewolves. I survived when my father and some men shot them. They ran off into the woods, and I never saw them again. I healed rapidly. The curse was transferred to me, though. You are the only one that I've told of this. I have been hunting the two werewolves down. I have read that if I killed the one who made me, it would lift the curse. She then removed the dress from her left shoulder. There across her shoulder and down her breast were claw marks. She slipped the dress back up and hung her head in shame. Alan looked at her. If what you say is true, then why did you attack me? Clearly, I was no werewolf. I was on the scent of the werewolves when I came upon you. I noticed at the last second that you were not who I was searching for. I pulled my attack, but sadly, I still scratched you, said Mary. If what you say is true, then why did you kill and eat Sarah? Asked Alan. Sarah had a broken leg, so I ended her misery. I am truly sorry about that, Alan, said Mary. Alan looked down. What do we do now? Help me hunt the werewolves down and end our curse, said Mary. Alan thought about her words. Then it dawned on him. The two werewolves must be his parents. It all makes sense. She was on their scent. It would not be out of the realm of possibility if they were his parents that he would have the same scent as them. I cannot, for if what you say is true, then they would be my mother and father. We need to find who cursed them and free us all, said Alan. Mary agreed, and they became hunters together. Some say they still roam the woods to this day. They are still hunting the original werewolf who changed their lives. So it could be them when the go silent on a fall night. Are you who they are searching for? Could they mistake you for their prey? So take care and keep a wary eye, for you never know what is in the woods at night.